Hi, this is Andy Collin from Growing Up Aspen Adventures of the Unsupervised. I'm here with Chris Pomeroy and Heath Kizzier. Heath came into Aspen High in his senior year and graduated. Moved on, went into acting, was in Wyatt Earp with Kevin Costner. Did 3 years in Young and Restless, and now runs and owns Four Oaks Farms. So let's catch up with Heath and hear his adventure. I felt like what Aspen gave me was a gauge for. We grew up in such an interesting little community that I felt like being grounded was kind of an important thing, Now the town has changed. It's not the same as it used to be. It's, the weekend warriors. It's the people who own, most of the homes now are owned by people who go there 2 weeks in the summer and maybe 2 weeks in the winter.
Right.
Whereas when you were there, all our parents, the Aldefers and everybody, we all owned those homes all over the place. Mm-hmm. And now that's not a reality. Very, very few people go to the Aspen High School that actually live in a home. They're more in, Silver King or Airport Business Center apartments or whatever, but it's different, And so, but that small community kind of gave me a sense, it was the joiners table at the Wiener Stube. Mm-hmm. Where everybody just sort of hung out. It was kind of cool. Like you said, your pad was a place where people just came to hang out. And that, for me, is a big part of what I like to try to have around where I'm around, is create an environment where, it might be why I got animation, because it's a team of people that I'm working with.
LA is like that also. It's hard to make friends. Well, number one, everybody lives so far apart, and to go have a beer with a buddy is an hour and a half to get there, and it's 20 miles.
Yeah.
But it just takes forever, and so I it's interesting. I mean, my time in Aspen didn't feel. I didn't feel the money. I didn't feel the
right. No.
Like I do out here.
Right.
And as Aspen maybe now, but it's just, I guess the word would be detached.
Right.
Out here.
Well, it wasn't always on display at our time. The money was definitely there.
Everybody wore jeans. Everybody didn't matter who you were, whether you were, digging ditches or whether you were working Wall Street. If you lived in Aspen at that time, you drove a Jeep, a truck, and you wore jeans, and you didn't know. By walking down the street, you couldn't tell. Whereas, I sat at the bus stop and I could see some girl in a froofy suit walking, or, dress and whatever, walking across the way. And I'm like, wow, okay, that's definitely Beverly Hills,
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting because back then.
But then you find out she lives in Elderville.
Right.
And the guy wearing jeans and a beat up cowboy hat is Rupert Murdoch or somebody,
Yeah. I just feel like the time frame too was very different. It was a lucky time to be around there because of that. You know what I mean? And
I don't remember anybody flaunting it.
Right.
There were some, but they were usually pretty frowned upon. People would be like, how gauche, whatever, let's move on and go talk to this other guy that's got more money than he does, and he doesn't give a crap, So.
Right. Well, I'm thinking more, of our peers, other classmates. You'd see, adults at that time who were taking it over the top, and it didn't feel used. Now you go to a high school out here in Calabasas or something out here in the LA area, and it's like, wow, this is a bunch of pretentious little brats.
Yeah. No, It's
we had a few like that in our schools, as I recall, but they were, yeah, but you're right. I mean, you never knew, who you were hanging out with. I always tell the story of a friend of mine who worked at McDonald's with us, and one night she invited a bunch of us over to her house, and she had an indoor and an outdoor pool, and then
oh yeah.
we were like, that is an amazingly huge house. She's like, well, this is just the pool house. Let's go in the big house.
Yeah.
Wow. I had no idea, and nor did it really matter,
Yeah, she lived right next door to me. That was Trisha, I think, right? Yeah. She was cool. She was really cool.
Yeah, she is cool.
But that's the thing. It wasn't about being rich. It was just about hanging out with people. And that was so different back then, Now it's about who are you? What do you do? And
what do you bring to the world? Yeah.
Yeah. And before it was more about hanging out at the back room of the party and just sitting there talking about shit with you. You know what I mean? It was really just about hanging out, which was more, the cool thing. Again, that's what the joiners table at the Stoop was all about. It's just about hanging out and meeting people. And it was about putting different people together. And I feel like that's sort of why we're at these odds right now in the world, is because not a lot of people are talking together about stuff, it's
well, and there's so much siloing of different folks,
Yeah.
I almost think that social media has kind of sent us all into little silos in a lot of ways, especially left and right versus, politics and whatever else. But
well, it's because you can pick your world. You can pick what you want. You can pick reality. I mean, when we were, again, it was like George Burson in history class. We threw out the book for Vietnam, and he came out and brought his chest out and started going through real stuff and real newspaper clippings and real photographs. So we got a real shot into it. So when we think about Vietnam, we're thinking about that stuff. Whereas now people can kind of pick and choose what part of things they want, because it's all in the same thing. Do you know what I mean? It's all out there in the vast soup, and you get to choose this or that or this. It's not as if, you get a real shot into a real reality, and then that's how you think of it. When Quinn used to take us out, we'd throw the book away and look up at the stars and see where things are, take us out and show us the plateaus that the ice ages did in Aspen. So you saw the city of Aspen at one, and you saw the airport, then you saw Woody Creek as the different levels of how the glaciers melted. So you physically got to see stuff, so you could kind of put it in there. And I feel like with internet, it's all that information is all there. And so it's whether people want to believe or not, it's up to them to decide what they listen to or not. You know what I mean? And so there's no real gauge.
I think it's becoming it's becoming very dangerous. I was just dealing with this week, where a lady on Facebook who, she and I have different political views, but we would have a good conversation years ago, and we'd sit down and we'd talk, and it wouldn't get heated. It would, we'd listen, and we'd take stuff. Now, I mean, all she does is post political stuff that never in a million years would she say that to my face, but she's expecting me, that she thinks that is important, that I obviously hear, because she's blasting it. So, I don't think she is now even willing to have the conversations that we would have had years ago.
Right.
Because she's just so plugged into that one side that
there's a lot of that right now.
It's horribly dangerous. I don't know where we're going to go with it.
Well, that's why I feel like what we grew up with was that ability to be different and come from different areas, but to sit and talk and have cool conversations. So we kind of grew up in that environment where we could even argue in a sense, but it was more about a fun conversation than it was about beating someone up. You know what I mean? It was about trying to fish through a conversation than it was about, my point is better than your point. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I feel like as the generations that move away, because we were sort of that tip of the iceberg, You know, the Walkmans, when we started, it was a Walkman. By the time we graduated, it was a Discman, you know? So the technology changed drastically. Well, now you have these generations that don't even, the interface, it's all on a phone. They're, like Chris was saying, your kids could be in the same car, one in the seat right next to each other, and they're texting each other, not looking over, talking to each other, which is so strange. You know?
Well, what's even worse is they're missing everything else that's going by outside. You know, I've driven through, you know, all the states and stuff with them, and I look back there and they're just, you know, and missing some of the most amazing scenery and, you know, culture and everything else. And it's just like,
they're missing those Sasquatch sculptures and stuff, right?
Yeah, you know, and missing Sasquatch himself. You know, he's just, there's Bigfoot. There's Bigfoot. Never mind. You know.
Thanks for listening. The authors of Growing Up Aspen would like to thank you, and would like to also thank the Aspen Times and the Aspen Daily News for giving us materials for our book, Growing Up Aspen, Adventures of the Unsupervised, which you can get at twistandturnpress.com and any local bookstore. Thanks.